is up, party people? Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we have yet another brand new E7 series. I would like to dub this a champion player's thoughts, or something along those lines. You'll see the title. Whatever the title is, that's what the name of the video is. I haven't actually figured it out yet, but we'll get there when we get there. Anyway, I introduce you to Mr. Link, or otherwise known as Rose Diff, who is a champion player, also pushing for Emperor this season, I believe. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll find out later. If you like this kind of video, be sure to give me a like, comment, subscribe. Actions really do appreciate it. But without further ado, let's get straight into the video. What is this video even about? This video is essentially going to be, well, no. This series is essentially going to be me talking to a champion player, in this case, Link, and probably only Link, but we'll see. Maybe there's gonna be other people down the line. Who knows? I don't know. We'll find out. And it's gonna be getting their thoughts on a given unit that maybe isn't the best, or that they believe to be underrated, undervalued, or something along those lines, or even just what I believe to be as such, to be more frank. But that's essentially what this is going to kind of be about. Coming kind of like an interview style thing. But yeah. So that being said, hi. Introduce yourself, good sir.
I am Link, Linky Winky, Link, Rose. If you've watched the other series, you've heard these names in the intros before. But I'm a weird player. My playstyle has evolved much over the years. I used to be back when speed wasn't over 300 when the game first came out. I was a speed aggro-ish kind of player. Then when we got units like Fairy Tail, I went to Control. Control kind of got killed whenever Ed came out, but now Ed just gets bullied by too many debuffs. And then I went to Tank Down. I've been playing Tank Down for, I guess, about almost year now. Primarily Tank Down anyway. I'll still sometimes shift to other playstyles, but mostly Tank Down.
So it's funny you mentioned. How long have you actually played E7?
I played the first year nonstop, and then took a break for uh, about a year and a half, and then I've been playing now for almost the last 2 years straight.
E7 is a great game. So
I take it back, actually. I came back for about 4 months when Rim came out, because Rim is love, Rim is life, and then I took another break.
oh brother, the RAM. That's for another video though. That being said, though, you mentioned Tank Down. Are you still a Tank Down player? Would you still describe yourself as a Tank Down player like currently?
Primarily, yes, but after pick 3, if your opponent realizes what you're doing, they can bully you for it. So pick 4 or 5, sometimes you have to shift out of Tank Down, which is why we'll talk about some of the things we'll talk about today, about like unit choices and why they're important.
Okay. What's your thoughts on the current meta? As we all know, the
Uh,
meta right now is interesting. Some like it, some don't. I'm indifferent. I don't hate it. I don't like it. It's okay.
I lost a game last week after turn 1 silencing their whole team, and they dual attacked me 4 times straight. So, but that's not really the meta. It's just shit happens. Um, I think the meta's in an okay place. It's much better than it used to be anyway. Like back in the day, there was one playstyle and one playstyle only, and I'm sure anyone who's played during uh, Hwayoung debut kind of knows what I mean. But uh, all the playstyles have kind of come and gone, but we're in a weird place right now where they've released so many units that counter each one of the metas as time has went that a lot of the playstyles are viable now. Like Tank Down 2 years ago was garbage, but
I definitely know when I started, which for those who don't know, I started literally last year. About now it's maybe about 15 months ago, give or take. But started like back then. I know when I originally began, Tank Down was seen as one of the worst playstyles to have, and it didn't have any quote unquote place in the meta, which was intriguing to me at the time. But now it's like I could see it actually working pretty well, honestly. Like I don't see a problem with it. It seems apparent that ages ago it was dead as hell, but it's coming back potentially. Things you love to see. You love to see a healthy like meta with different playstyles can actually like prosper. So this out the way, Pyllis. what made you build Pyllis? Especially considering you're running tank down. What made you build her for your kind of tank down draft style?
So Pyllis, uh, I had her built previously, but she was just on kind of Guild War gear. She just got put into Guild Wars with all of the meta counter defenses. Um, but ever since last year with Karina's release, people have been finding out like new techs with her. That being like Rocket Punch, because Rocket Punch is just stupid. Um, but so Pyllis is a knight that does a lot of things all at once. Whereas like we have units like Airwell, and their job is just make big number small lol. Or we have Carmen that's you can't touch me this turn lol. Or like the Crow or Yulhas where it's you can hit me, but make sure it's enough to kill me. Otherwise you're dead lol. Where Pyllis has a cleanse for your whole team, provokes, a strip, does a fuck ton of damage with Rocket Punch, defense buff for your whole team, self heals. She just out of all of the other knights, even though I don't run Aureus, the biggest thing is the 30% damage reduction from counters extras duels. That being said, if you're like me last week where I got dual attack 4 times in a row, sometimes it's just not enough, lol. But she does a lot. So there are drafts where, say, I go into the match and they obviously are pushing aggro. They're going to want to ban your mitt. If I bring a mitt with Pyllis, so say I go Yoha, sure, they can ban the Yoha, but I still take 30% less from things like Jacko extra proc or a Caval S2 or what's the other big one? Oh, Conk duels. When Conk pulls, uh, you just take basically nothing, and then you get a free defense buff. You self heal it off, and then you cleanse everything that they do turn one. So out of all the knights, she can transition to other play styles in late draft better than the others. Because if I go Carmen pick one, and then I'm like, well, shit, now I need to go aggro, I might lap my own Carmen and basically not get invincibility until the third rotation, which just sucks. Whereas Pyllis does enough on her own that she's a knight and a carry and a cleanser all at the same time.
So when you built her, what was the original idea for her? Like before Rocket Punch, as you mentioned, like you had a build before. What happened?
Yeah, so the build before was like essentially just for Guild War because mystics are always nice to have. So when you run into the defenses where it's like the Senya shoe, insert any other counter like Mercedes,
Hmm.
Pillars just kind of wins. She doesn't really care about the counter defenses. But I used to run uh, basically no Aureuses because in Tank Down it's kind of hard to get an Aureus to go through in the first place. So I draft one supports, two main carries because drafting two Aureus Knights is just stupid. Like you're not going to get any value out of one or the other. So I needed something that would stack with an Aureus carry in case I did still want to get extra mitt in the draft. And there wasn't really anything other than Carmen. But I mean, Carmen's best artifact is Aureus anyway, so she wouldn't get any value out of her artifact slot if I wanted to use Carmen too.
Hmm.
Whereas Pyllis, I can take 20% less from share from my other Aureus carry, like my Yulha, and then take 30% less from the Pyllis passive because they'll stack. One's a share and one's a damage reduct. So I basically take no damage. And there's not really any other knights outside of like, I guess A-Raz with the barrier passive is like the only thing that's comparable.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I definitely remember like way back when. I remember like seeing a lot of YouTube videos on like Pillars being like the best unit for Guild War because at the time I didn't know this, but because of like all of her reductions that she has for like against dual attacks counters and shit, that being like so prominent when it comes down to the lovely Shu Conk senior teams that was like plaguing defenses then, which still is now, but I don't feel like you see them as much anymore. I don't think you see those three at least together nearly as much as you did then. But I that's interesting to note. As I didn't think about it then, but yeah. Um, what's her role for you? What's your Pyllis role now for you? Is she like more your support, a DPS? Like, what does she do for you now?
Kind of both. She's like some of the other classic tank down DPS right now, like Euphine and Candy, where both of those late game is where they really take off. Like Candy sometimes early game just takes off because fucking
Is
Elbrus
that what?
every touch lull. Yeah. Which she can just take off early game, but typically they take off late game. Pyllis is kind of the same way where early game she makes a really good support, but if you don't deal with her and she gets a bunch of will stacks and a defense buff and a vigor, because I run conk with her, and a vigor, you'll get like 5k defense and you can just blow things up. And I forgot to mention earlier, I needed something else to help deal with Aidens. And Pyllis S3 gets free 70% evasion, so they can't dodge. And Rocket Punch just lets me one shot Aiden's turn one. So
That's a lot of. That's actually a lot of damage, considering if you're going into an Aiden with it, especially if it has like I don't know any kind of bulk. Being able to one shot at Aiden is kind of huge, actually. That's kind of huge.
yeah, the typical route is if I go Pyllis first pick and they go like a non-attack speed opener, then I'll go something like Conk and maybe Lulu, unless it's a support that kind of trashes on Lulu. And then Lulu Conk guarantees no matter what, I get defense buff and vigor turn one. And Pyllis, even if they're like the weird tanky lifesteal Aidens, just blows them up. So getting rid of that so I don't give the other team free invincibility is just huge value.
So here's a question: if you're using your pillars to go against Aidens, how does your pillars do against an Aiden if they get to hit you first, essentially? Does
Well,
she
then I'm
kill?
usually still next in rotation. I strip the invincibility off whatever else I'm touching, and then after the invincibility falls off, they get rocket punch procced.
So your pillars lives the Aiden?
Oh, always. I don't know that she's been one shot by an Aiden. 3k defense with a vigor buff stack. You just kind of live. Especially if they let an Aureus carry through with it. There's not really anything that just gets Pyllis off the field immediately.
Well then, off the record, I know my Aiden almost could sort of did it, but you also increased your defense by like 500 since that last happened. So
Yeah, she got a few huge upgrades. She used to be on an HP two piece. Now she's on defense two piece, and we got this sword for the 18 speed that same night. So she's very thick now.
yeah, we need to actually test that again later. See how much damage I do now. But anyway, um, why use her over a unit like Karina with Rocket Punch? I know that's like a big like topic that a lot of people was going into like a couple of months ago. Was like, oh, the Pillars of Rocket Punch like craze is kind of dead. It's kind of like it was like a hype thing. It's like oh, it's like underwhelming. Karina's just better. Why use Pillars with Rocket Punch over Karina?
Well, so as I was saying earlier, I still kind of transitioned to other playstyles where I think Karina with Rocket Punch is still better anti-cleave. Where I think the only time Pyllis edges out that edge is if it's Cavill or Jacko based, because then you can just kind of guarantee living those extra attack procs. Um, but otherwise, Pyllis isn't quite as good as Karina when it comes to anti-cleave. The main reason I prefer her over uh, Karina is she's great in control drafts because she has a provoke on both of her skills, so you can just keep threats locked down. Typically, if they only bring one cleanser, cool. That means you just spam provoke the problem. Like if it's a candy, they just never get their boat and they just die to rocket punch. Or if I go like a more aggro draft and I have like a book carry, for anyone who doesn't know, Pyllis S3 Soulburn reduces the cooldown to where you can just spam it every turn. And if you have 4 units and a book to open with, you can basically just spam S3 over and over and over and over. And it cleanses your whole team. a debuff each, gives a barrier that scales with your defense. So if you get zero defense buff, the barrier just gets thicker. It does a fuck ton of damage with Rocket Punch, and it can't miss. So even if they blind you or they have an evasion unit, you just won't miss and still get the guaranteed damage.
Okay. So, speaking on the can't miss portion here, why not use a unit like Briar Witch for stuff like Aiden's? As that's a common thing. But for Briar Witch as well, you'll also be able to defense break potentially the entire opposing team. Why not use something like Briar Witch?
Briar Witch is also on the table. The only problem with Briar Witch that I have right now is she's not as universally applicable. Whereas Pyllis, I usually either first or second pick because she's so flexible and I can go either direction. Whereas if I go Briar and they bring a fast unbuff unit, Briar can just get shit on and die, and then she did no value. And her AoE skill, there's a lot of AoE punishers right now, or debuff punishers, like Ed, or what the hell is his name? Ambitious Tywin, or LRK, and those are all like fairly common units. So I don't want to take something like Briar too early because that guarantees them a proc. Where Pyllis, cool, you brought ML Kin, I'm not going to crit, and I can just lock down whoever the whole game. Or cool, you brought Ed, I can still bring DDR and just sleep your Ed and the rest of the team, and I can just single target provoke somebody else other than the Ed the whole game, and just let Ed die to Venom.
Slow poison.
Yeah, literally. I sleep him and I don't touch him the rest of the game.
That's fair. Those are some fair points. Okay. What would you say her best matchups are? Best case scenarios. We always kind of went over a few of them, but what do you think her best case scenarios are?
Standard players, or when people try to tank down tank down me. So, like I said, Karina is still a better unit into cleave. And even into aggro, I would say Pyllis is probably still better. Just because aggro usually does function off of a lot of duels or extras. Or debuffs. And Pyllis kind of deals with all those. But when people try to standard you, there's not really anything standard can do when you have a separate Aureus carry like Yulha and a Pyllis. And yes, they can try to deal with the Yulha early, but if they do, that means Pyllis is just going to be a huge threat late game because I have a shit ton of defense stacks from Will because she makes you hit her from provoke, so you're going to give me Will stacks. And then either a vigor or a defense buffer. Or in tank down almost exclusively functions off of counterattacks. And if my tank down team takes 30% less than your tank down team, that's just an easy dub. So,
What would you say are like detrimental like picks for her? Like her worst matchups, worst case scenarios. You do not want to bring her into this, if anything.
it really depends on the other units you like to bring. So I almost always bring another unit that can also cleanse in draft. Just because I don't like Pyllis being the only cleanser where it's only one per. And if my other cleanser does get banned, then at least I still have a cleanser. That's another reason why I prefer. But if somebody doesn't like drafting an additional cleanser or doesn't really have an additional cleanser like Dillybet built, then she kind of just gets controlled and dies. Unless you build like ER Pyllis. But I would stand by and say that F on Pyllis is better than ER. Because I like being able to guarantee those provokes. So I do get hit. So I do get the free will stacks. And ER needs so much investment to be good that you would have to sacrifice on defense. And again, I like one-shotting Aidens. So.
Fail.
But yeah, it's definitely, if you don't transition your draft soon enough, like what I was talking about with the 4-5. So let's say I'm second pick and I only have one pick left at end of draft. If I haven't transitioned enough to deal with another playstyle, like I'm still in tank down and they shift to aggro, I don't really have like as much of a chance with Pyllis as I would with another knight like Karina to deal with it at that point. So really, like, messing up in draft is really important with Pyllis. I've known some games where I get down to fourth pick and I've got one left, and then I realize, fuck, and I wasn't flexible enough. Yeah, she really needs much more specific unit support to go with her
Now,
than most knights. Like Carmen, you can just kind of slap whoever, but Pyllis really needs like specific support.
now, speaking of her support options, what do you think? What would you say her ideal drafts would be, like teammate wise?
Uh, two carries, one high tempo, one like low or mid tempo. So in that I mean somebody who can dump their value up front and somebody who dumps their value late game. So you want two supports early, ideally one cleanse and then one support to counter their supports. If they just go aggro and they're those people that just slam fucking 5 DPSs, then just bring another mitt. So bring an Aureus carry like a Yulha who can push and punish those aggro drafts, or just somebody else like Airwell who can push and punish for other teammates getting hit. And then a cleanser, obviously. So something like Dillybet or Hand Guy or Leyyme or literally anyone else.
Hey
And then
man,
last
liar first
two,
pickers are people too.
Leyyme first pickers deserve to get DDR'd in Galata. Uh, but then, so yeah, so in 4 or 5, you want to bring somebody who can dump up front. Speaking of which, Gala is one of those. So if you're going uh, into a team that is a lot of HP scalers, they first picked Laya. They've brought ML Shu, especially ML Shu, because Gala loves being injured. Or an LRK, or really like if you see 2 HP units, Gala is almost always a safe bet unless there's extra attacks or true damage like Rimuru. Bringing somebody who can dump that value up front, push your team from the tempo, and then somebody who's slower. So like MLU Fiend, somebody who functions well in late game, because it forces your opponent to say, do I care about killing the U Fiend right now and dealing with the Pyllis later, or killing the Pyllis and have to deal with the U Fiend later? And it's almost always they try to deal with the U Fiend, but U Fiend with a 30% extra reduc and Aureus and 2 units like Yulha and Pyllis who are constantly provoking the problem, they just can't deal with it.
Not gonna
So
lie, that does sound very annoying.
yeah, which is another reason I'll share the Yulha here. Another reason why I run a shit ton of F on my Yulha, because I very frequently provoke their cleansers.
So, when do you pick your pillars? I know you mentioned, I know you were mentioning like having like being flexible and having like your 4 5. But like when do you normally pick her? Like is she like a first pick? Is she a last pick? How when do you pick her? How do you pick her?
Oh, always in 1-2. She's always either first pick or second pick because I know she's flexible, and if I have to change my draft late game, it's always better to have your flexible units first than pick your niche units, get countered, and then have to pick counter units later because you'll be missing rolls in your draft. Uh, so she's always in 1-2, and then if I'm second pick, it's always Pyllis and a unit that counters their opener. Unless it's a game where I look at their pre-bans and I can tell what they're trying to do. So if I see like Candy Belly and pre-ban, it's a cleaver. I'm probably going to take Zio. Or if I don't take Zio, I'll just take Karina. Or just a regular anti-cleave unit. Uh, yeah, she's always in 1-2.
So here's a question for you. Hypothetically speaking, if anyone watching this, I'm not saying do this. Hypothetically speaking, what if your opponent sees you first pick Pillars and they go, okay, Aiden LQC. How do you deal with this?
Then I shift to aggro. Because I know Pyllis is going to blow up the Aiden. And I just kill the LQC before it's a problem.
Hmm. I asked because I know a lot of people has been transitioning their LQCs lately from being like the slow Hellcutter stack to, I believe they're going speed now, more speedy
Yeah, most are going
abilities.
speed.
So I was just curious, like how would you answer
Well,
that? But
I don't agree with the people who were doing that because if you look at the changes made to LQC, she basically only got like between 15 and 20% crit chance, and that's basically all she got. And then people are seeing that, maxing out her crit, and then sacrificing offense stats to get like 60 more speed than they used to have. Or they're sacrificing their bulk stats to get that speed. So the fast LQCs either don't do enough to kill Pyllis, or they just die. So
so basically a
I think the
win-win for
slower
you.
LQCs are, yeah, exactly. But I think the slower LQCs are definitely more of a threat. But I definitely think LQC should almost always be reserved for late pick because, like I said, you can just run over LQC.
Okay, so now we get into like the builds, right? What build are you running? I believe you're running counter and defense set, right?
No, she's on speed, and she's specifically on speed because people assume she's on counter, or like they assume some of my other units on counter. So they bring leyyme up, and then they keep punching Pyllis, and they don't realize why the fuck is she not countering because they see rocket punch and assume she's countering. So Pyllis just stands there and gets bullied and just never counters. And I wanted the extra stats because I wanted her over 200 speed to be able to cycle that S3 if I don't get to soul burn it first rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And also while still having a shit ton of bulk.
I see, I see. So with this in mind, why why not go something like counter Elbrus like most other people do? Considering with her on rocket, well, not rocket punch, but considering just what she does, like you being able to provoke and because you are playing tank down, wouldn't something like wouldn't something like being able to sort of provoke and prevent your opponent from, as you know, essentially playing the game, wouldn't that be very useful for you? If she was on counter Elbrus? Obviously, you wouldn't be able to one
Well,
shot your
so
Karinas, one shot your Aidens, but
yeah, and that's kind of the reason. Like, uh, I don't think I'd ever run Elbrus on her just because the value from rocket punch is just too high. It's good on Karina too, but where Pyllis can basically already have higher defense and stack her defense up even higher with her passive and gives herself self defense buff without having to activate a punishable non attack. I don't know. I don't know if there would be as much value from for anyone watching who doesn't understand who I am. My RNG sucks. I'm on it. Sucks balls. Just to put it lightly. RNG is terrible. Again, the quad dual attack to make me lose the game was amazing. Um, so if I go counter Elbrus and I'm kind of relying on Pyllis to do her job from that RNG, there'll be some games where I'm literally getting no value and she just stands there. Whereas Rocket Punch, I at least can confirm, oh, you have a squishy, it's dead. Or, oh, you have a candy, I can two-shot you. And I just wouldn't be able to get that same value from counter Elbrus.
that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. So, real quick, before we get into this next little tidbit, what do you think of some other artifacts on her? Like, what would you say her best in slots would be? I know a lot of builds
Um,
that I've seen been using Symbol. A lot's been using Noble Oath. Obviously, you got your Aureuses and your Elbrus. Rocket Punch as well. What do you think's her best, like, three?
for anyone using Symbol, I don't know who hurt them, but
Not gonna lie. This is like off record. Obviously, it's on record right now. But like when I was researching this, I saw a lot of symbols. I don't
I don't know
know,
who hurt them.
but
You
there's a
do
lot
not
of
need Symbol.
symbols.
If you don't know, Rocket Punch procs on a miss. Even if you have to S1 somebody, you're still doing way more damage than you would had you had Symbol instead of Rocket Punch. If you hit. So like if I were to hit and even crit usually with my S1, I'm still doing more damage if I were to miss with the S1 and get the Rocket Punch true damage. Like I don't get the point of symbol. Yay, I have a 20% chance to, not miss now. I'm still gonna miss every fucking time. Like, there's no value there. I don't know. The only other artifacts that I think would have value, Noble Oath is pretty good. Noble Oath is what I run on Karina now. All that free defense and ER makes the knight have like real staying power late game. And Aureus is always good, especially on a knight like Pyllis, where she already reduces your team damage from what is currently in the meta, some of the most oppressive attack types like counters and extras. So Aureus isn't bad. I would rather have a fuck ton of damage with damage mit than a fuck ton of damage and like nothing. So if I were to just lead like Aiden, if I first pick Aiden like other people, because Aiden could just also not dodge and die. So I don't know.
Also fail. I definitely had instances where my Aiden didn't dodge and I died. I feel that.
Yeah, I definitely say Rocket Punch is still best in slot, even though people are kind of saying it was a meme. I really don't think it's going anywhere for a long time.
Again, as someone who was new at that time, seeing people talk about Pillars of Rocket Punch and then seeing it kind of evolve over time, I also saw it was just like, okay, yeah, it's kind of not that great. Wasn't that great? Your Karina, lol, your Pillars was probably the first one I seen where I was like, okay, that actually kind of, okay, it kind of, okay, that's kind of
She solos MLKins.
like, okay,
That
this is
should be
kind of
good
nuts.
enough.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if it's a meme, guys. This one's kind of nuts. I ain't gonna lie. So I mean, if that's anything to go off of, I don't know. Like perhaps some people just didn't have the stats required to really make it shine or something. I don't know, but that kind of leads us into the little final topic here. Most of the Pillars that I have seen sit at around 2.7 to 3k defense. Your Pillars is currently at what, 3.3 now?
2.9 right now.
Ooh,
If
at
I
2
were to
point now.
swap from
Okay.
speed boots to defense boots, she's at 3.4. Because I've got defense percent with a fuck ton of flat on it. So I can be 3.4.
Yeah, so most Pillars I've seen have been sitting at about 2.7 to 3k defense. What do you think's the ideal like range for her? Would you say that's like about right, or a little bit less, a little bit more? What do you think the sweet spot for her damage is? Well, damage and
Minimum,
bulk,
I
I
would say
guess.
it's, yeah, minimum, I would say it's the same as Karina. I think you need at least 2.8k defense if you're going Rocket Punch. Max I would be probably 3k, because any more than that, like you're getting diminishing returns from your defense as far as like your bulk. I probably wouldn't go any greater than 3k, just to have stats for other places. Minimum HP is probably 15k. I wouldn't go below 15. I have a couple pieces on my Pyllis that didn't roll the greatest. I think my necklace is only like an 85, and it needs more health on it than what it currently has. So definitely not below 15k. I'm at 15.2 right now. She still doesn't die.
That's
Um,
actually funny you
but
mentioned
if you're
because
not planning on,
most of the Pillars I've seen was sitting at around 16k HP to 18k. So a little bit lower than
yeah,
most that I see.
I think the only thing mine's different than others is I think I value a bit more speed than most people because I think most are running counter. So like 160, 170. I like being a little faster to get those cycles. And then I run a split of F and F res. I put a little bit of F res because sometimes she does go behind Christy, and Christy's my other mid in that situation. If I do plan on Pyllis being that late game carry, but I also put a lot of F because the provoke value is just so high.
Speaking of F, most of the ones I've seen was sitting at around 25 effectiveness, which, 25 effectiveness to 100 effectiveness. Thoughts there? I know yours is currently at
I would
80.
say 88 right now. She was at 97, but I sacrificed that for more speed. Um, yeah, I'd say over 50 minimum. I like to have a little bit on mine. because basically any supports, 80 to 90 is enough F to check supports. So if they have like a Soul Weaver that only has a 150 ER, I can still provoke it. And if I can provoke it with Pyllis, it usually tells me whatever other units I bring. Like if I bring a control unit late draft, it's immediate tell like, cool, I'll just shoot it with P-Flan next turn. So it's a good check between 80 and 90, but definitely over 50. And then I like around 50 ER just for Christie to put me at like between 250 and 300 ER, so I still don't get just long-term lockdown from control.
Yeah, looking at the ER, I guess effectiveness too. That seems more, I guess, what you value. Cause I've seen these two kind of fluctuate quite a bit. Obviously, again, I said effectiveness seem to be sitting at around 25 to 100, but then at the same time, the ER values for a lot of them was also sitting at around 25 to 100. Like it's kind of like a even, they kind of like some kind of balance you want there. But I've seen a few like very high ER ones going all the way up to like 150 to 200 ER. I haven't seen really super high effectiveness ones, but I've seen really high ER ones. Uh, why not go more ER? I know you said earlier that you value the effectiveness a lot, which is why you don't want to run too much ER. But thinking about it like having more ER would mean that you're not going to get stunned, not going to get slapped, not going to get controlled, and obviously you don't want her to be controlled. Why not run more ER for her for the situation where you're not running like Christy, for example?
Well, if I'm not running Christie, I'm always either going to bring, if I expect Pillars to be a late carry, come pick 4-5 anyway, I'm always going to bring somebody who can either protect Christie, protect Pillars like Christie, or an additional cleanser. So, and I'm not too concerned with ER in general usually because a lot of my imprints are either health or ER. It's been leaning more health lately. So I'm usually getting a bunch of free ER anyway. But also where Pyllis self cleanses from her S3, if you just bring one book support, like Zeo early pick, or if you want to counter a non-attack with a my brain is dead. Sorry, long day at work. Like a poly. Uh, then you can just spam your S3 the entire time and self cleanse yourself because she doesn't care about many debuffs. Sure, yeah, she can get defense broken, but then you just bring a cleanser or defense buffer like Lulu, or sure, she can get blinded. I'm going to be S3ing you turn one anyway, so I'm going to hit and I'm going to cleanse it off. There's a lot of debuffs she just doesn't really care about, or attack down. I don't care about attack down because my rocket punch doesn't give a shit about my attack stat. So there's a bunch of debuffs she just doesn't care. It's only really sleep and stun. And if I see those, then cool. I doubt if I late pick a Malona Candy and there's a hand guy in the draft that you're going to end up banning the hand guy. So I'm going to have a cleanser. The candy is going to get banned. So,
I think that's.
and if it is in a situation like that,
Mhm.
uh, I would always put candy there with Pyllis if the one debuff that I'm worried about in their draft is stun. Because yes, they can ban my hand guy and then my Pyllis can get stunned, but Candy can't be stunned. So then you have to deal with Candy the whole game.
So I think that's probably about all the questions that I had regarding your Pillars and Pillars just kind of like in general. But now that I say that, there actually is one more thing I want to add here. What do you have any like recommendations or anything in particular you want to say regarding Pillars to anyone that may be watching? Like, anything at all? Just quite literally anything. Rather that's like try it out. Rather that's
Build a Roz. No, really, it, if you don't have Rocket Punch, there are better knights, and Pyllis is still a good knight. But I think Rocket Punch just evolves her. In that case, just build a Roz. Roz is good in all kinds of drafts. Um, if you are planning on building Pyllis and you like do value the provoke but also want ER, just as like a rule of thumb, for stat splits to still have enough stats everywhere else, I would not go more than a total of 150 for F and F res. So like no matter how you split it, I just would not go more than a total of 150. So whether that's like 75 each or 0F 150 ER or 150F and 0 ER, I just wouldn't do more than 150 for both.
Hmm. Now that begs another question. Why? Why only
She
150
just needs a
bullies for like?
shit ton of stats. So like most takedown units, like Euphine and Candy and Malona, their biggest problem is they need a lot of stats. The gear value just kind of has to be there for them to work. Because, I mean, I'm sure everyone has played candies where, yeah, like they keep counter and salvoing, but they just kind of die. So like you need the bulk stats as well as the damage and enough attack to self heal. And the Malonas out there who, yeah, they do a shit ton of damage turn one with their S3, but then they just die. Uh, a lot of these late game carry units, they need the stats enough to do damage and to make their turn rotations, but they need to be able to live that long.
So last and actually last thing this time. Uh, what are your? We kind of already guessed it though, but what are your thoughts on everyone saying before that Rocket Punch Pyllis was, just like a meme? What's your thoughts on this now that you have, obviously seen a ton of success with Rocket Punch Pyllis? What's your thoughts on that
if
now?
that becomes if that becomes to be like community believed fact where people just say Big P Pillis is dead, I will make a montage of one-shotting evasion units. Oh no, there's a Rylet. There was a Rylet.
That's fair.
I mean, you can tell me another unit in the game that protects your team, cleanses your team, provokes threats, and blows up DPSs. There's not really anyone.
Well, that's where you're wrong because tomorrow we're getting a new hero that's going to do all the things. Oh, imagine though.
Well, you say that. Tomorrow we're getting ML Poly. Who fucking knows? You might be right.
Oh,
Or I'm
just
assuming it's ML Poly. They haven't announced
just
yet.
just
The
like
custom's done.
just like for anyone like that might not be aware, we don't work at a Smilegate, so like if that happens to be the case, don't look at us.
I'm just making an educated guess here. But I mean, if they want to make it ML soon, I'm down with that.
But yeah, I think that's probably about it for this. Um, any closing remarks? Anything you wanna say before we let everyone go home? And well, they're probably already home, but let let everyone get off the fuck this video.
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and if we clip it in, cool. If not, I mean, good for me. I'll show you guys my player icon, my banner. If you see this and you first pick Leyyme, I'm gonna DDR galley you. Pre-bin them, please. And fuck you. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. She's fun.
He says that, but he really quite hates it.
I have a fun time fighting them. It's just the games take fucking forever.
Yeah, but you're a tank down player. They take forever anyway. It's okay.
That's only because my candy doesn't pop off. If my candy popped off, the game would be over already.
But
My
yeah,
counters don't proc. It's like every team I fight has like an ML Elena hiding in the background saying no counters for you.
but yeah, that's basically it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, if you do, let me know. Who knows? We might do another one. Maybe sooner than I was going to do it at first. Because, I mean, we're going to do another one anyway. I'm just saying. But yeah, that's basically it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Take care and peace. Bye bye.